Hello YouTube, my name is Juggernaut, this is Dota 2, and this is an introduction to Juggernaut. Juggernaut is a carry who doesn't scale particularly well into the late game. I know how that sounds, and it sounds a little bit strange, but essentially he kind of needs farm. He's also occasionally played in an off lane or a mid role, but generally he's a carry. He does very well in a push lineup and does very well in a sort of early fighting lineup. He's very good at getting first blood, and he's just very good up until the sort of 40-minute point. Beyond that point, he becomes very limited, and I'll talk about why in a bit, but currently I'm on my player perspective, so apparently I'm looking at other stuff. I think Slayer said, like, what else should I get with random gold for Axe, and I think I just said get really fast Tranquil Boots. Because he's playing a jungle Axe. We are playing as a 5-stack this game, or we were playing as a 5-stack this game. This is a replay, by the way, guys. I believe the other team were probably a 5-stack as well, because the matchmaking's been changed, so it prioritizes putting 5-stacks against 5-stacks to make things a little bit fairer, because obviously it's a lot easier to work as a team then. So Ashe is playing a solo mid, Slayer's playing a jungle, I'm playing with Jelja, who's still fairly new and doesn't really know what he's doing all that much, and can be a little underconfident sometimes, and a little, well, mostly just underconfident actually. And Tonsa on the offlane. He's not played for ages because he's with the Finnish army right now. But either way, I'm going to be playing a carry Juggernaut. As far as skills go, he has Blade Fury, which essentially you spin around doing a damage over time in an AoE around you. It lasts 5 seconds. And it scales from 80 damage a second to 140, which means you do absolutely huge damage early on. It's a very strong damage skill. So it looks like we're against a dual lane here. I have Jelja supporting me. And one thing that you'll notice about Juggernaut is he has very poor base damage, but he has a very nice animation. So you can see there, with most heroes I would have got that last hit, but I didn't because of the exceedingly poor base damage of a Juggernaut. So he struggles definitely in that regard, and he can struggle to farm sometimes. I'm going to be rushing a poor man's shield this game. That will help me mitigate some of the harass that I'm likely to take from these two, because they're both ranged heroes. As well as that, it just makes me a little bit more survivable. It will give me +6 extra agility, which will mean that I'll have, you know, fairly okay damage. You can see from his stats, he only really scales okay in agility. He doesn't scale fantastically in agility, and he doesn't scale very well at all in either strength or intelligence. Now what this means is that by the late game, a lot of agility carries will have obviously accrued massive agility, massive gold, and have huge items and stuff. Juggernaut isn't really built around the same sort of ideas that most agility carries are, which is generally a lot of split push, a lot of jungle farming, a lot of AFK farming, basically. Stuff that you saw in the anti-mage video, basically, where, you know, you just jump around, split push, occasionally turn up to kill steal. Juggernaut is not built like that. He is an early game fighter because his skills are all fantastic, but will eventually fall off, apart from Blade Dance, which is, I'll talk about that later as well. So Blade Fury, you could still move at the same speed when you're Blade Furying as if you're just running normally. So it's very good for chasing people. The problem is you do need a movement speed advantage. So in this lane, you can see we have a Weaver and a Jakira against us. That pretty much means that whenever we do want to try and get kills, the only chance of us actually getting any kills is for me and Jelja to both go on the Jakira. He's already a fairly slow hero, and he'll be even slower because we have a Lich, which is, you know, obviously very good for slowing people down. So here, creeps are under the tower. You can see how I do need the stout shield. I know a lot of people will go, oh, but you have base damage issues and issues farming on this hero. Why don't you get a quelling blade? The thing is, if people contest your lane, if people come to your lane, a quelling blade is probably the easiest way to lose that lane. And honestly, it's really easy to just completely lose a lane due to the fact that you've got a quelling blade and you're against people who are going to harass you. If your supports are pulling as well, you're going to take damage under the tower from hitting creeps. I was going to try and get that vibe, but I missed it. So you can see, I'm going to try and get all these last hits. I didn't get that one. The range creep at this stage in the game, it has to take one hit from me, and I'll let it get hit twice by the tower, and then it'll get hit by me again. So I've used up all my tangos at this point, and this is kind of the point, maybe a little bit earlier, where I'm really saying, you know what, we want to try and kill people. Now, as far as skill builds is concerned, like I said, Juggernaut has terrible int, and he also has quite bad strength. So at this stage, I would suggest getting a couple of points in stats. It used to be that you'd get 2 points in stats and 3 points in Blade Fury before you pick any other skills, and then you pick Omni Slash. This has changed a bit more recently because Healing Ward is just so good, and people have just sort of paid more attention to that. I let that guy get that catapult. Oh well. I did get that creep though. So you can see my creep score isn't fantastic right now. It's mostly because, you know, I've got bad base damage, I'm trying to contest the lane. So Slayer comes in for this, he's going to slow him down. Another thing about Blade Fury is it makes you magic immune, but you can't attack during it. So you can see there, even though the stun went off, I just carried on chasing. And here the Weaver was out of Sakushi, so we just carried on trying to harass him as much as possible. If Slayer had had a bit more chance to, if the guy had lasted a little bit longer, Slayer would have been able to get off a second Battle Hunger on that guy, and we would have got a kill. So here I picked up my Gloves of Haste and boots. I'm going to be going for treads. I know a lot of people suggest phase boots. It's just my personal preference of getting treads. The only reason I prefer treads over phase is basically because it allows me to tread switch a bit. You won't see me doing that a huge amount this game, I'm going to admit, but it just allows you to get that little bit extra survivability when you need it, that little bit extra damage when you need it. And I prefer attack speed over damage on Juggernaut generally because of the way Juggernaut's ulti works. I'll talk about that a little bit later, but now I have picked up my first level of Healing Ward. I'm level 5, so I've got 3 levels in Blade Fury. This is when it does a huge amount of damage. It does a huge amount of damage at every level, but basically 5 seconds times... I do 600 damage if I can stay next to someone. I can't right-click them while doing it, so there are disadvantages to Blade Fury, but it's very, very strong at this point. For 5 seconds doing 600 damage is, like, that's a lot of damage basically. And it's only into the late game where Blade Fury stops being useful. But like I said before, past that 40-minute mark, you basically just use Blade Fury as magic immunity to escape. Like you use it and then use a TP scroll and TP out. So I have picked up Healing Ward at this point. Basically what Healing Ward does is it just summons a little ward that you can move around. It's got 300 move speed, and it heals you as max HP per second. It heals a part of your max HP per second. It scales from 2% to 5%. This is very, very strong in pushing strats with very tanky heroes. For instance, we have an Abaddon on our team. We also have an Axe and a Kunkka. All of those are quite tanky heroes. So if you're like me, where you have much lower health, I have 720, it will heal 2% of that a second. So I'll still heal at the same rate relative to my HP pool, but I'll heal at a lesser rate compared to someone like a Kunkka who has 986 HP. So 2% of 986, far more than 2% of 720. And that's the basic idea. And of course it scales very, very well into the late game. It can be destroyed by the enemy. It'll be killed by pretty much everybody, I think, in one right click. I'm pretty sure it'll be hit. It'll be killed by one right click. It doesn't say, but it lasts for 25 seconds. The cooldown is 60 seconds. So you can have it up for just under sort of half the time. So it's really quite strong. Now we forced this guy out of the lane here, and here's what I can do. As soon as I've hit level 6, I can just immediately ulti this guy. The reason this is so strong is because of the way Omni Slash works, and I haven't been able to talk about that, but I will. So Slayer's got a Battle Hunger on that guy, and I think we aren't going to get him because he has a Ring of Health and he's going to use a Tango, and he's just going to survive, I think. Yeah, it looks like... yeah, Slayer should have got 3 points in Battle Hunger and 2 in Counter Helix in his Culling Blade, and then 11 in Culling Blade. That's much more useful for ganking and stuff. This is more of a farming sort of build, basically. But it doesn't matter too much because we got one kill and we forced the guy out of the lane. So here you can see I've used the Healing Ward. It does work on your creeps and such. So again, really, really strong pushing. Now against creeps it's not going to make a huge difference obviously, but that was Miss Micro there. I put it in tower range and you don't want to try and do that. So I've got rid of the tower aggro and I'm going to continue to try and do some damage here. So I've got my power treads. I've also picked up a magic stick. The reason I picked up a magic stick is because we're against a lane that's being contested. I'm going to finish off a full wand just because I want the extra stats. Mid-game items are what you want on Juggernaut generally. There are a couple of late game items that are really strong on Juggernaut, but like even like the most mid game of mid game items, things like an Aghanim Scepter are very strong on the hero. So as far as Omni Slash works, basically it scales, you jump to targets, your initial targets gets mini stun, it does physical damage, and it does 175 to 250 damage per hit, depending on your damage, I think. It does 3, scaling to 9 jumps. You can get an Aghanim Scepter and that will increase that to 6, scaling to 12 jumps. You can do 12 250 damage hits instantly. And you're completely invulnerable while it's happened. You can't be affected in pretty much any way. There are a couple of things that I think will stop it, but I think they're actually supposed to be, like, they're glitches, basically. Now, one thing with Omni Slash is that it'll attack random targets after the first jump. So the first jump is the one that it's targeted on. But after that, your next 2 hits, say, for level 1, can hit anybody. Well, actually, no, I think it's... Yeah, it basically, it can attack anybody within an AoE of 425 around that target. So the idea in a lane as Juggernaut, especially against an offlaner, he's very strong versus an offlaner. When you get to level 6, try and harass them away from their creep wave as much as possible. As soon as they're away from their creep wave, you can Omni Slash them and pretty much insta-gib the vast majority of offlaners. If you still have mana left, you can also you can also use Blade Fury, i.e. you spin. Sorry, I know everyone calls it spin. You can use Blade Fury as well, and that'll pretty much just destroy them. So again, this Weaver's being harassed out of lane further. I think it is a higher level now. But you can see we are trying to take the tower as quick as possible, and this is basically what we want to do on Juggernaut. I took the tower hit. I've bought myself a salve. I can't remember why I brought the salve now. I think I remember rightly, I was bringing myself a salve and then just used Healing Ward and didn't need it afterwards. So I am tread switching for a little bit more damage here. You can see my damage isn't particularly great right now. I don't hit for very much at all. But I hit fairly consistently, and right now I can use Blade Fury as well as an Omni Slash on someone. And well, not right now because I don't have the mana pool. Again, mana issues on Juggernaut are really obvious. I picked up a 2nd level in Healing Ward. 2 or 3 levels of Healing Ward are generally all you need until the late game, where you want as much heal as possible from it, obviously. But earlier on, you don't need it quite so much. So our lane went okay, despite the fact that Jelja's not a great support player because he's very new. I mean, he's not a great player because he's new. That's not his fault though. As long as he keeps on playing, he's fairly consistent and he's doing okay at the moment. So I don't want to like criticize too much, because he plays pretty well considering how many games he's had. I think he's a league... Yeah, he's a league player. But me and Ash are now fighting for last hits, because I can't go and farm down here, because so many people are missing, so I'm a little bit worried about doing that. It looks like they're actually doing ancient stacks here, so that's a smart move from them. I think Ash said something about that in-game, and then we were like, oh, well, we'll do something about that later. So I haven't got anywhere to farm at the moment. I'm looking for what to do. Now, as far as item choices go, there are a lot of really great mid-game agility items. For sort of mid-game agility carries, I could pick up something like a Drums of Endurance. That's really strong, just gives me a little bit extra tank, just makes me a little bit stronger. And you can see here, we forced this guy out of the lane again, and I just Omni Slashed. It's totally worth using Omni Slash for a solo kill at this point. Later into the game, I want to use it in team fights, and especially in the very late game, I definitely don't want to use it for solo kills, unless it's, it's on a really important hero. So again, we're trying to push this lane again. We have Tonsa, me, and Jelja here. I've put down the Healing Ward, and you can see the effect it's having on our creeps. It's actually quite visible. Slayers come down as well, and we're going to just try and kill off this tower as quickly as possible. I'm not sure if they'll fortify this or defend against it, but we have really strong push this game, and that's essentially what we're working with. We have very strong push. They have quite good anti-push, but they don't have their heroes in the right place at the moment, and they haven't done for a while. One thing they do have over us is very good split push. We have terrible split push, because they have a Weaver who's very maneuverable, very survivable, very difficult to lock down, and we're just trying to, push as much as possible before it gets to the point where her split push can do much. So we get into this team fight here. I was going to try and spin a little bit earlier. I do spin here, and I separate target, sadly. I realise I can't follow that guy afterwards, because I think I was slowed down a little bit. Yeah, I wanted to try and go on the TA, but I wasn't able to because she was faster than me. So that is one serious disadvantage of going for treads like this, but personally I still prefer it. And I'll continue to keep on going treads. Honestly, treads or phase both work. You can even go for tranquil boots if you're in a lane where you really need the regen. But yeah, I mean, you know, it's your choice. So I'm going to go on this guy here. He's isolated. I waited until you can see I saw him through the bushes, and I just went on him and spun. There's nothing they can do, support heroes like that can do if I spin on them, because I'm completely magic immune. And I still do a lot of damage because of how much Blade Fury actually does. In fact, at this point, I think I still do more DPS with Blade Fury than I do with just right clicks. I'm basically just using my right clicks to push. I'm using my skills to kill people. So I'm up to level 9 now. I have 4 skill points. 1... That's 5, 6, 7. So I have 2 points in stats right now. That's about how many points I would say that you need in stats at this stage of the game. Later on, after this point onwards, I'll get Blade Dance and Healing Ward. Probably more points in Blade Dance, and I think I said, yeah, we've overextended there, so I said we need to just get out of there. So item I'm going to go for now is a little bit controversial. I know some people really don't like this, but I'm going to go for a Shadow Blade. I know a lot of people like their Battle Fury Juggernauts, but I really don't understand the point in it personally. It's kind of useful for pushing, but Healing Ward does more than enough push on its own. The same can be said for just your normal right clicks. You don't need a Battle Fury just to push lanes, and Battle Fury is a farming item. I've said this before. I say this to people in game whenever they get it on stupid heroes like Bounty Hunter and stuff. It happens all the time. You see people getting Battle Furies when in a bad situation. I just don't understand the point of it, and you know, that's because I want to battle most of the time on heroes. I mean, obviously, you know, there are certain heroes who are absolutely core. Things like Anti-Mage and stuff, where you really, really want it. Farming heroes like that, it's great. But most of the time, Battle Fury is situational on everybody but Anti-Mage. And even sometimes there are situations where you don't want Battle Fury. But generally, it's the only hero I would say it's like standard on. So I picked up my first level of Blade Dance here. An interesting thing about Blade Dance, it's the most cost-effective crit as far as sort of reliable DPS over time. The reason for that is because its crit chance scales from 15 to 35%, meaning you'll crit a really large amount. Compared to most crits, this is amazing as far as chance. Compared to something like a PA, it's huge. But the critical damage does not change. You only ever do 200% of your right-click damage, and Juggernaut doesn't do particularly great right-click damage. This means that in the mid-game, he's very, very good as far as Blade Dance damage, but once you get past level 16, his damage is really quite weak. So at this point, I'm thinking about what I can do as far as this Weaver. I know he's just used Sakuchi. Mostly here I wasn't expecting to get him. I knew his ulti was up, and this was a calculated idea to basically just try and burn his ultimate, make him afraid of coming to this lane, and that's what I've done at this point. He's fallen back really far, and he's still low on farm. He has got full health and mana again. Well, not full mana, but he's just a little bit afraid at this point, and I know he's going to be out of the fight for a little bit. I've pushed him back. I have burned my ultimate, and it was kind of a waste because it just got onto level 2. But it now means that we're in a good position to fight the next fight 4v5, even without my ulti. So I picked up a bracer here. I'm going to pick up some drums as well as the Shadow Blade. I decided I wasn't going to be able to afford the Shadow Blade quick enough. I knew this guy was here, so I'm just going to spin on him. And Ashe does actually take the kill. You can see here, I'm immune to magic during that time, so luckily the Sand King didn't do very much damage to me. I'm spending the time in this situation to actually get rid of the thing. I put down the healing ward. I'm just going to run in and immediately right click on the supports. I'm not strong enough to, you know, do a huge amount of damage to the frontline heroes at this point, but what I can do is zone them out, and because of that we killed 3 of their heroes and we kept everybody on our side alive. So that was really good for us. I didn't do a huge amount of damage in that fight, again, because I didn't have Omni Slash. My Blade Fury didn't do very much either, but I did manage to force one of the supports back, and the rest of the team picked off the other 3. Well, I actually managed to force both supports back. The Chikiro went as well. Here we were trying to see if we could chase after that Chikiro, but I wasn't able to get into range, and neither was the Kunkka, so we gave up on that kill. That's fine, to be honest. I'm going to finish off my my Shadow Blade fairly soon as well. It looks like Slayer's going for a blade mail and axe. I don't know if I've talked about this before, but I really don't like blade mail and axe. The reason for this is because you use it when you use Berserker's Call, obviously, because that's when everyone's trying to hit you. But the thing is, Berserker's Call gives you like plus 40 armor, and you take virtually no damage when you're using Berserker's Call, unless they're doing huge damage, at which point it's like a hard carry that you're fighting. So blade mail isn't going to do very much versus them, because they probably have more HP than you as well, because they're just generally more farm. So I really don't like blade mail on axe, but I mean, I know a lot of people like it. I'm putting the healing ward in. We were trying to do Roshan here, and I think I said, like, I really don't think we can do this, guys. Not until like we've got Shadowblade or something. So they do go in. We send the boat in afterwards. I am going to try and turn up at the back end of this fight. You can see I've tread switched it in. I'm looking for somebody isolated from the fight. I'm trying to get the Jakiro. I don't quite manage to get him, but he takes a lot of damage, and I think my teammates are going to finish him off. The reason I didn't get him is because you saw it jumped all the way to the TA, and the TA had refraction up, so I didn't even do very much damage to her either. I did try to follow up and get the TA as well, but I don't quite manage it. So the reason I went for Shadowblade is just it's really, really strong for initiation. What it means is I can run to somebody in Shadowblade, hit them, and then immediately Omni Slash. I can also get out of fights a lot more, and one thing that I do need, as you just saw then, is survivability. Juggernaut can struggle a lot as far as HP is concerned. For instance, if we look at Tonsa, he has 1309 HP. Look at Axe, he has 1100 HP, even though he's a bit further behind. Kunkka, he has 1366 HP, and when I get back up, I think I'm going to have, with just a bracer and my treads on, as well as a magic wand, so that's a fair amount of stats there, compared to someone like the Axe who has no stats. I'm going to have pretty much the same HP as him, even though I'm much higher level. I believe at this point, yeah, I'm actually same level, so I've not been doing particularly great this game. Like I said, I don't generally, yeah, I have 1138 HP, so I don't have very strong HP. So having some other method of survivability on Juggernaut is, in my opinion, pretty damn strong. I am going to jump into this, and this is a little bit stupid, but I do bait out a ton of stuff, and because I have Shadowblade and they haven't quite yet gotten around to getting themselves anything to deal with that, we do a lot of damage to them overall, just me and the Kunkka. Mostly the Kunkka, but I baited them out to fight me, which allowed the Kunkka to do all the damage. So, you know, that's a win-win for us. The Kunkka, of course, we have like 3 sort of semi-carries in this game, because Tonsa's playing a Baden, which is a sort of carry support hybrid. It's not really a carry, it's definitely a support, but the difference is that as an offlaner, he's playing in a core role, and we have 3 quite strong heroes for our cores, whereas they only really have the Weaver for their late game. TA's okay in the late game as well, but so we're relying on, you know, us all getting kills. I'm not so bothered if I take a lot of damage, don't get so many kills this game, but the Kunkka gets them all, for instance, and that's, you know, that's a good idea to go with when you're playing as a solo mid, not as a solo mid, but playing as a carry like a Juggernaut, because you're never going to carry the game on your own unless you do exceptionally sort of well early and mid game, to the point where the other team just have nothing. At which point, you know, the game was over, or whatever hero you were playing, probably, because you're probably playing against people who don't know how to deal with you. So next time, I am going to go for it. I am going to pick up some drums, mostly for the extra stats and such, because I do still need some sort of mid-game stats. Other items that I could have gone for instead of Shadowblade drums, I could have picked up myself something like a, I can pick up something like a desolater. That's a pretty damn strong item. Minus armor is always very useful for Juggernaut, because of course Omni Slash is physical damage, so it'll do more damage if you reduce that armor. I can also just pick up something like Diffusal Blade, and then maybe a Medallion. That would do the same sort of effect, but I'd be able to slow people as well, and I'd do possibly even a little bit more damage with the Mana Burn. So they go after Ash here. I had Shadowbladed, planned to Shadowblade in. They don't actually have anything, so I'm going to sneak around and just look for a pick-off opportunity. I'm thinking of going on the Jakiro here. I do go on him, my ultimate, and he's pretty much killed off immediately. So I'm in a bad situation here. I'm going to use my wand and then just Shadowblade out again, because they already used their thing. Then we focus down on the Weaver. He was low, and me and Ash both hit him at the same time out of Shadow Blade, and we killed him off like that. And from that fight, the maneuverability of Shadow Blade, the ability to choose exactly what target I want to go on without having to go through anybody, meant that I actually got a triple kill in that fight, and I hadn't been doing very well up until this point. So I've now caught up almost with the Kunkka, caught up with the Abaddon, because my laning stage wasn't particularly great, and yeah, things are going well. So I picked up a Belt of Giant Strength here. I'm going to go for a Basher after this. It's because I want some lockdown. We have very, very poor lockdown on this team. We have stuns from Torrent and Ghost Ship, which are unreliable. Ghost Ship's a little bit more reliable. We have Berserker's Call, which is unreliable because of its very, very short range and the fact that you have to blink in pretty much to use it. And that's it. And they have a Weaver, so we're very, very afraid this game of just being unable to pick anyone off or being unable to hold them down. So I've got Healing Ward down in this fight again, but we're trying to disengage, I think. We've sat here for a bit too long. I am dusted, so I can't use my Ghost Scepter, not my Ghost Scepter, my Shadow Blade, to get the kill. Slayer does go on that guy, and we are going to get him. I was going to try and get that Sanking there, but he did a smart move and just got out of there. So you can see there, if I had like a Basher or something, and I got lucky, we might have been able to kill that Weaver then. I'm also gonna finish off my drums at the same time, I think, but I'm trying to buy up the most expensive parts to the Basher at this point, just because I'm a little bit worried that I'm likely to die. Again, put down the Healing Ward. You can see it makes us very, very sustainable. Even though we just fought a fight at the tier 2, we're now able to push it down, even though we took a fair amount of damage overall. And we're all back up to full health at this point. One issue we do have again on this team is mana issues. I think I said to this point maybe to Tonsa or Slayer, like one of them should disassemble their boots or whatever boots they have, or change boots from what they have and buy arcane boots. And yeah, Slayer has already bought arcane boots, so I guess it was Slayer that I said to. I think Tonsa might as well. Let's see if Tonsa does. I think he's going to. It looks like he is. So now we have some arcane boots holders on our team. That's pretty important for our team, honestly, because otherwise we have very, very strong sustain. We have a lot of heals. We have lifesteal up on our. We have aura lifesteal up on our Abaddon because we have 3 melee heroes. So getting a Vladimir's Offering is very, very effective. Plus he's almost always going to be alive, so it's very, very strong on him. And again, whenever this Weaver goes on me, I can pretty much trade for it more favourably at this moment because I have a lot more farm, as well as my Shadow Blade, and I'm going to pick up my Basher fairly soon. Picked up that Illusion Rune there because I didn't want the Weaver to take it from me. And I'm just going to jungle with this Illusion Rune. There's not a huge amount I can do. You can see almost all the lanes are actually pushed out, and I want to keep one of my TV scrolls because we're always going to be split pushed against by a Weaver. So I want to keep one of my TP scrolls off cooldown as much as possible. I don't want to TP to lanes to farm very often, I want to TP to lanes to counter push. And the same should be said of almost all our heroes in this case. Apart from really Abaddon, he's pretty rubbish at counter pushing. Well, actually I say that, he can just run in and tank all the creeps, it doesn't really matter. So going for this fight here, I'm going to turn up a little bit late. You can see I tread switch to have the mana to Shadow Blade. I can't switch my treads afterwards, that would break the Shadow Blade. So I'm just going to run in, try and find myself a kill. And I do go on that guy then, but it gets stunned immediately afterwards, which is a little bit annoying for me. And eventually I decide that it was probably a bad choice for me to come here. I'm going to switch to int treads as well as Son of My Want. And I think I'm going to TP to our bottom tower because we are being split pushed, like I said, by the Weaver. It was a bad decision for me to try and come to that fight. I wasn't really going to change anything. I might have kill stole or something. But, I mean, is that really worth it when I'm not looking to go into the late game in any way? Not really. So, you know, bad decision making from me. Not particularly great move or anything, but I am still going to be able to stop them from taking the tower. They're never going to do that. And I'm going to get some farm here. I should have TP'd earlier though, and I would have got a lot more farm, and they wouldn't have done any damage to our tower. But, you know, whatever. So again, tread switching for the mana so that I can Shadow Blade, and then switching again to agility treads because those are the most cost effective for me to right click people with. Jildred at this point is, this is one thing that he's going to have issues with as a player. When you're newer, you don't really know what to do as a support hero. He should be covering the rest of our team though. I was farming. I was always going to be fine. So we're going to go into this fight here. I'm picking on the support heroes again. I'm going to immediately take out the Lina before this fight even starts for her. And that's really, really strong for us. We now have the Drunken Rum on us as well. I'm going to spin on this guy because it's still more cost-effective damage at this point. And I get myself a mega kill with the double kill streak now. So despite my low HP, Shadowblade has really paid off this game. I've used it fairly commonly, but they haven't had enough detection to really deal with me. And I would say if there's anything to say about bad performance from this team, it was that they didn't have the detection, where we had 2 Invis heroes on our team. Kunkka and I both went for Shadowblades this game. That's fairly common on Kunkka. It's a little more uncommon on a Juggernaut, but like I said before, I would definitely suggest it to other people as well. I think it's really strong. I think I was requesting help with Roshan at this point. I can almost solo it if I use my healing ward, but I'd rather not. I'd rather have someone come and help me. I didn't think I Shadowbladed into this, so I think I said to the team that it was fine, it was safe, they didn't know, but the enemy team definitely knew if they had wards, but I think their wards just expired on the bot lane, so it's okay. So I've picked up my drums here as well. Drums, Basher, as well as Shadowblade means I have some fair amount of attack speed and the chance to bash fairly often, and will bash fairly often. I am going to pick up the Aegis, just because I'm less survivable than the rest of the team, as well as that I'm very mana dependent. And the thing with an Aegis is once you die and come back using the Aegis, you'll come back with full mana. So it's very, very easy for me to Shadowblade in before a fight, pick off somebody on the back lines by hitting them and spinning on them, go into the middle of the fight, carry on right-clicking until I die, pretty much. I said to Jeldra at this point, he's going to die if he tries to defend that. And then die in the fight, come back, and immediately have enough mana for Omni Slash as well. Even if I'd used up a fair amount of mana beforehand, I'll come up with immediately full mana if I do die. As well as that, I'm our most consistent damage over time. Ashe does a lot more damage than me, because he's a Kunkka, but, as I've said before with Kunkka, he's not very good for reliable damage. Tidebringer is 1 hit every 4 seconds maxed out, Torrent almost always misses, and Ghost Ship misses sometimes. I say Torrent always misses. I've had people before criticizing me for not worrying too much about whether Torrents hit and stuff. Torrent isn't actually that great a spell. It's a 300 damage nuke that stuns for 1.53 seconds and then slows for another 1.5 seconds maybe. It's honestly not that great a spell. For a really hard to hit skill shot, it's not really worth worrying about too much. I mostly just use it in conjunction with Ghost Ship and hope they get hit by both. Ultimately, it's your least important spell, and it's also your least likely to hit spell, so really it's not that great. It's just useful in the early game to add to your damage. You can see here I initiated that fight with a Shadowblade hit into a straight ultimate. That was a really good move for me, I think. I'm going to immediately go on the Weaver. I'm burning him down pretty damn fast here because of the bashes. I am going to die, but it's just burning my Aegis. There's no problem with that. Tons has taken the aggro of everything there because he ran in, and it's fine for him because he's very, very hard to kill. And immediately after that, I'm going to place down my ward, and then we're going to take on this tower. They do fortify for it, but they don't really have anyone to do anything. So we're just going to keep on hitting the tower here, and you'll see the creeps don't actually aggro to the healing ward. I do pick off onto TA there. She went in way too overconfident. One thing to say is that TA is not very good versus our team. We have a fair amount of damage over time and lots of very quick hitters as well with Juggernaut and such. I was going to go on that guy then, but he ice paths, so I was like, yeah, whatever. But at the moment we're just trying to force them back, and we have such high sustain. You can see we're all almost at like full health. Axe runs in pretty much suicidally. It does slow them down a little bit, and I'm going to go for a stun. We do get that guy there. I go godlike from that kill as well. You can see the Basher helping out a lot. Tonsa's going to finish off that the Weaver, and then we're going to continue going on. You can see the Bashers plus crits equals a lot of damage and a lot of lockdown. It's really, really strong. So we've taken out their racks there. They're all down, but we're down our axe, and we're all fairly low on mana. I'm the only one with good mana at this point, other than Jeldra. And I think at this point we said, you know what, we should just back out after taking a couple more wells for the gold. And I think that's what we're going to do. We should do. Yeah, we're not gonna finish this. We're not gonna get anything more from sitting in the base other than feeding them kills at this point. We are fairly far ahead though, so this is pretty much my ideal stage for me. This is when I'm probably going to be strongest. I'm going to pick up an Abyssal Blade after this. For those that don't know, Abyssal Blade gives you an active on top of the standard basher that is a straight bash for, I believe, 2 seconds. Yeah, 2 seconds. It goes through magic immunity, which makes it very, very strong versus BKB heroes. One problem is that it does proc Lincoln Sphere, so it's not going to be very, very good versus Weaver. If somebody else procs Lincoln Sphere in the fight though, I will try and use it on him. I'll probably try using it anyway, and I think I do try using it on him anyway. And it also adds a lot more damage. I do now do a plus 100 damage from this. I also get a little bit extra strength, which is always helpful, because you can see my HP pool is really starting to falter at this point. Despite me being a level above the Kunkka, I'm over 200 HP behind. Actually no, I'm 190 HP behind. I'm well behind the Axe on HP, and I'm also way behind the Abaddon on HP. Despite being I believe I'm the highest level on the game now. Yeah, I'm now the highest level in the game, and one of the most average HP pools, as well as quite an average int pool as well. For items after an Abyssal Blade, with this sort of build where you're trying to sort of sneak in, pick off people in the back lines of play, and then use your ultimate as well to do as much damage across everybody, there aren't really any more items that I could look for. I could maybe pick up an Aghanim Scepter, but it wouldn't add a huge amount. I could maybe pick up a Manta Style, but it wouldn't pick up a huge amount. And I think, to be honest, items after this are all just sort of like whatever I felt like at the time. You know, like, at this point, we're fairly certain that we've won the game, even though we just lost a couple kills, lost a couple heroes for no reason. We're fairly certain that we've won the game. We're 35 minutes in, up one set of racks, and they haven't pushed down any tier 2 towers for us yet. I'm fairly farm, but we do still have to worry about the late game, or the sort of end game. So you can see there I got a bash on that guy, and that's actually what allowed us to kill that guy off. And here, he fucking ulted me, so I ulted him back, and it turns out my ult's way better. Yeah, that was literally just a spite ult from him. He was never going to kill me. My ult was guaranteed to kill him. I have 12 jumps at 250 damage a pop now, probably. That is more than enough to kill him. And I think, yeah, the next item I'm actually going to pick up is an Assault Cuirass. I think this is really strong on Juggernaut because it adds a lot of attack speed. Attack speed, of course, stacks with Omni Slash. One thing to remember about this is, I don't know, maybe that's only for Aghanim Scepter. I don't know. But I think if your attack speed is high enough, you will attack in between the jumps for your normal attacks, and you have a chance to crit as well. So it's really quite strong to get really high attack speed on Juggernaut. Especially because the Blade Dance, it's not going to do a huge amount of damage no matter how much damage you get. So getting more attack speed obviously means that the high crit chance is going to happen more often. So it's much more consistent damage over time, basically. And again here, we're just trying to take out more towers for more gold. As well as that, it'll add a lot more armor, something that'll be useful because I don't have particularly great armor at this point. I have 20, which is pretty strong, but for an agility carry, it's pretty poor. And that's just, you know, that's just Juggernaut. He's not a great sort of late game carry in the sense that most people would think of when they think of a late game carry. So I do try to take him out with my Abyssal Blade there, but it procs his Lincolns, obviously. I thought Tonsa was going to maybe go for him because I said I was going to Abyssal him, but I guess we just didn't think about whether he had a Lincolns or not. It's not really a big deal, honestly. So again, I'm just going to be as aggressive as possible. It doesn't matter if I go down because they spent so much time fighting us. And you can see they get taken out by a huge wombo combo from us. The boat plus the Lich ult just destroys them. As well as a good crit from the Tidebringer. It just absolutely wrecks them in a team fight. And it's totally okay for me to die in the middle of a fight if it means that someone like a Kunkka or somebody else on our team can also do well. So that's a thing to think about with Juggernaut. I think this is pretty much the end of the game. I think I buy up my Assault Cuirass afterwards. I wouldn't personally advise, you know, lifesteal on him or anything like that. There are other items that work on him. I know a lot of people like Sanjin Yasha. That's bad. Don't do it. be aggressive before 40 minutes. Be aggressive in your lane, be aggressive as much as possible. If you have a useful lane support, even a mildly useful lane support, you can get first blood. Alright, that's just a straight up thing. I had a Lich in mind. That's not particularly great. He can throw out a Frost Blast though, and that's a pretty much guaranteed kill on a Jakiro, who's a very, very tanky support hero in the early stages, and tanky towards the late game as well, but he just didn't get any items this game. That's one thing they really struggled with. Their team just never got any farm. They tried to do ancient stacks and stuff, but we killed it off, so I'm just going to watch the rest of the fight at this point. I've gone over everything I pretty much want to go over. I'm going to TP. Now, I'm going to sell my drums. Okay. I'm going to sell my drums. TP, I think? Am I going to TP? Or I'm not going to TP. I think I'm just going to finish off my Assault Cuirass. So I was in one of those moods. I was like, no, I want my item. Don't finish. It looks like we can't finish anyway, because they've managed to beat us back eventually. So be aggressive from the early stage onwards, and that's why I suggest items like a Shadow Blade. The only reason I picked up an Abyssal Blade this game is because I really wanted to try it out on Juggernaut. I'd heard it was good from a couple people, and I was like, you know what, I think it would be good on Juggernaut, because he has very high attack speed, especially with items like Shadow Blade, with like Assault Cuirass and stuff. It means that you're going to bash people very, very often. Blade Dance combined with it, of course, it's a lot of damage as well. I'm hitting for 122 plus 122 right now, so... And you can see I can also Roshan very quickly. What Juggernaut doesn't do is take hits easy, and, you know, without healing ward up, you die very, very fast. You saw in that last fight, down the bottom lane, I died really damn quickly. So I finished off my Assault Cuirass here. I'm going to very, very quickly take out Roshan. And then I'm basically just going to go and finish the game for my team. I know a lot of people like Aghanim Scepter as well. Again, Juggernaut is a mid-game hero. It's totally acceptable to go something like an Aghanim Scepter. Manta Style is also very good at him. It adds to his pushing power a lot. It adds to his DPS a lot. All those sort of mid-game items. I really like Diffusal Blade on him as well. It means that you can, if someone's really, really fast, you can spin on them and Diffusal Blade them. And you can continue hitting them as well, because the orb effect will go through, so you'll burn their mana. You won't hit them for any damage other than the mana burn damage, but it's still, you know, it's a little bit more damage to add to Blade Fury. It means that you can catch people with Blade Fury very easily as well. It probably synergizes with the Treads pickup a little bit more than perhaps a Shadow Blade would. Shadow Blade probably makes more sense to go with Phase Boost, but I like being able to Tread Switch on a hero like Juggernaut, so that was my decision basically. Slayer got Invis Rune, so me and Slayer were like, oh, we'll go Secret Agent Man and see if we can pick anyone off, and I decided to get the Sand King. He's going to try and survive, and he's going to almost make it, aren't you, Sand King? He's going to make it, actually, because he blinked out. Here, again, he fucking Sandstorms, Jesus. That guy's really annoying to kill. That's just the nature of Sand King. Put my healing ward as well to heal myself. So you can see I do burn through my mana really fast on this build, but you're never going to pick up lots of mana items or anything on a Juggernaut. You're never going to pick up anything like a Lincoln Sphere, cause it's just not going to add anything to you. And that's what I'd like to say. Don't pick up too many farming items. You can pick up battlefury if you really need to, but I honestly don't rate it on a hero like Juggernaut. I would much prefer things like Shadow Blade, things like Manta Style. They do a lot more damage per second, really, and they add a lot more to the hero as well. Some people argue, you know, oh, you can crit on a hit that, you know, hits multiple targets. Well, yeah, but the multiple targets only take 35% of damage. It's really not worth it. Go for a mid-game orientated lineup. Go for a mid-game orientated build, and be as aggressive as possible. Push a lot of towers. Juggernaut works really, really well in a pushing lineup like this, and he works really, really well at just going for people and going for aggressive. So overall I went 15 to 16. I think that more than vindicates the build that I went for. Like I said, I think Shadow Blade plus Phase Boots makes a little bit more sense, but I like Treads on the hero, so if you want to go Treads, do so. If you get Treads though, go for... God, what is it I said to get Treads with? Yeah, get Treads with Diffusal Blade if you're going to go for that build. So both of those works. Thanks for watching, guys, and GG. I hope this has been helpful.